we will start the discussion going around the table, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, your organization, tell a little bit about yourself briefly, and also the type of leadership that you are endeavoring to provide in the community. So let's start with Jacob. Jacob is from, well, tell us.
Sure. My name's Jake Rickert. I'm the Director of Workforce Development at Penn-Northwest Development Corporation. We're located over in Mercer County, Pennsylvania. My quick background, I grew up in Greenville, Pennsylvania, stayed within the county my whole life, excluding 4 or 5 years for military service. I lived out in Colorado. My day-to-day work, we actually created a program we call the Homegrown Initiative to help retain young adults in our area. And on top of that, it's all led purely by other young adults, which we call the future leaders. It's young men and women that act as the guiding body for all the decisions we make to help further retain young adults, whether they grew up there or came here for education purposes.
Thank you. Paige.
Hello, everybody. I am Paige Genova. I am a pelvic floor occupational therapist, but I am the founder of Vital Pelvic Health and Wellness, which is a pelvic floor clinic, a rehabilitation clinic in Poland, Ohio. I grew up in Columbiana, so outside of my schooling and my grad degree and everything, I have come back to the Youngstown area because I really felt strongly that we needed better healthcare here, specifically pelvic healthcare. And so my clinic exclusively treats pelvic floor dysfunction, and so that's pretty different for this area. Most rehab clinics are sort of the traditional rehab clinic that you've probably seen before. So we're very different from that, and it was purposeful. And I hope to continue to grow my clinic to be able to reach more people and to really establish ourselves as the area leader so that people don't have to travel far for really great world-class healthcare, provide better jobs for therapists because the streets are tough out there in healthcare, good jobs for therapists and other people who are passionate about helping people.
Sure. Nico.
I'm Nico Morgione, Associate Director for Business Development and Industry Partnerships with Youngstown State University's College of STEM. Born and raised in the Mahoning Valley, currently living in Canfield, and grew up, went to Ursuline High School, went to YSU for my undergrad and my master's, and the leader that I want to be, and I think I would imagine most of us, I'd like to be a leader that people can look to who are also young adults, young professionals in this region and say, I don't need to move away. I can live here. I can get a good job. I can do X, Y, and Z. And I think that there's a lot that we'll dive into to really showcase that. Additionally, I play in a local band, so that's a lot of fun. And I'm very passionate about this area, this region, and I think we're on a great path, and the best is yet to come. So.
My name is Levi Smith. I am a budget administrator at Youngstown State University. I work with the Honors College, the Office of Community Engagement, and the Trustwell Institute for Leadership and Teamwork. Through that and growing up working in my family's fields, my 100% goal is servant leadership. So I also have a couple companies that I run, and I try to lead by demonstration and always cheer my team on from the back. That's what I do. And then the Trustwell Institute for Leadership and Teamwork is a leadership and teamwork institute teaching soft skills to students to help them understand the things they need to be prepared to live in today's world outside of their curricular education.
Hi, my name is ShoMoré Wright. I'm formerly a regional liaison with the Ohio Secretary of State Office, Frank LaRose, and now work for Canvas America. Previously, in my role as a regional liaison, I was in charge of 12 counties, Board of Elections, Chamber of Commerce, Youth at the Booth, helping out there to get young people engaging in voting. I definitely learned from being in the office for 5 years that transparency is very important. And I think that's the type of leadership that I want to continue to provide, honest, clear, open, honest. Am I forgetting anything? Besides that, I also am a yoga instructor. So after this, if anyone needs to relax, You know where to find me.
Shea MacMillan with Platz Realty Group, where we solely focus on commercial and industrial real estate. We're very ingrained in the Mahoning Valley and have been growing into Ashtabula, Columbiana, and a bit of Portage. And what Platz offers is not just a brokerage that markets very well, but you're really getting a partnership and a group that has been very invested in the community for decades, and really happy to be a part of that team. In my former role at the Youngstown Warren Regional Chamber, I was the Vice President of Economic Development, where I was able to collaborate with some really impressive people, a lot of people at this table in workforce development, project management, and industrial projects. I was able to help facilitate site selection for Altium cells and help navigate incentives for the Macy Distribution Center in North Jackson.
Very good. Kaneesha.
My name is Kaneesha Ellen Tensley. I am a police officer with Boardman Police. Essentially, the type of leader I want to be is very like an opportunist type of a leader. Always want everyone to be able to know that you have other choices. A lot of things that I find with the younger generation is that they feel like I can only do this. And one of my goals is to let you know that no, you can do more than only. You can do anything. So I want to be that motivation for them. A little background, I enjoy making rugs. It's considered tufting. I have my 9-year-old son, so I'm also a mother, and basketball is my game for sure. I also went to Urson High School, and I just want to go ahead and continue to be a light for the Mahoning Valley in this area to continue to bring in some other opportunities for us.
Thank you. Katie.
Good morning. I'm Katie Cretella. I am the Director of Clinical Services at the Trumbull County Mental Health and Recovery Board. I am a lifelong resident of Trumbull County, completed my education at Youngstown State University, and have remained in this area and worked within the community between Trumbull and Mahoning County. In my role at the Mental Health and Recovery Board, I oversee mental health programming throughout Trumbull County. And oversee the programs through our contracted providers, and I lead the Trumbull County Suicide Prevention Coalition. So my goal is to always work to decrease the stigma among mental health treatment for those that are seeking mental health treatment, while increasing access and decreasing barriers.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Bresnahan. I am a marketing manager with DGPerry, which is a regional accounting firm based here in Canfield, Ohio. We support 8 offices out of our Canfield office and about 175 employees just right here. Our hub here is here in Youngstown, but we service 8 other locations. A little bit about me, I'm from the area originally. I'm a graduate of Boardman High School. For college, I went away to West Virginia University and moved to Chicago after graduation. Back in 2018, I moved back to the area. There's no place like home. I'm really proud to be from Youngstown, and the leader that I want to be is I really want to be an example of you can come back here. There's a lot of great opportunities here in Youngstown. People look at it as, hey, I want to go out and see something new, and that's great, but you can always come home, and there's a lot of great people here, a lot of great organizations here, and we welcome you back to Youngstown.
Very good. Tyler.
Hi, my name is Tyler Wolfe. I'm a regional manager for Winter Aviation. Winter Aviation is a business aviation on one side, do maintenance on private jets and maintenance and stuff on one. On the other side, that's where I primarily work. We work across the nation with different airlines to provide services on the ground handling side for customers traveling around the country. A little bit about myself. Leadership is definitely a passion of mine. I'm a John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer outside of work. My passion is to help develop people, and even as a young leader, develop them into the leaders that they want to be and give them an example in their life even when it's hard, quite honestly, leading as a young leader in today's day and age.
Awesome. Hi, I am Gina Peplow with Jobs for Ohio's graduates. We work with youth 14 to 24 overcome their barriers to employment and academic success. I am from Warren, born and raised. I graduated Warren Harding, then went to Youngstown State, and then I just finished my master's in December in management and leadership. So what I look forward to for leadership in this area is developing our youth beyond the barriers that are set in front of them. A lot of the youth I work with are 200% below the federal poverty guideline and low socioeconomic barriers where they don't have access to a lot of resources. I was one of those youth my whole life. So now that I can bring that back to them and say you can move beyond where you're set up, it's not what you control under 18, it's what you do after 18 and how you build yourself and your life up after those situations come to you. So I look forward to continuing developing young leaders in our area.
Thank you. This is an awesome group of young leadership, not so young leadership, but you're obviously the next generation. And what sets you apart? Why did you decide to get into leadership? Why did you stay in the Mahoning Valley? Why did you come back? Some of you have touched on this, but what can you tell people about why they should come here or why they shouldn't leave here? And we'll just throw this open to anybody who wants to start. Shea?
So I think we'll probably hear this word a lot. Family, I'd imagine. A lot of people are probably thinking that. I went to YSU for economics. I really wanted to get into monetary policy. I was focused on going up to Cleveland and working for the Fed. And a lot more people now talk about the Fed than they did back when I was thinking of working for them. But the more I started going to YSU and I started meeting like really impressive leaders in our community and getting a sense for the size of our community, I wanted to be a part of world building rather than kind of going to a place that was already well established. I think there's a lot more excitement and a lot more things to be proud about than when you're collaborating to uplift something. Anybody can go to a community that's got countless jobs and go down to Columbus and work for Intel, but the level of collaboration and camaraderie that you can facilitate here with a bunch of passionate people, a lot of folks here, and hearing your stories is really awesome. That's really what kept me here.
Yeah, I think one thing that a lot of people, especially graduating from school and, when they're deciding where they're going to go after college or graduating from high school, going right into the workforce, it seems like there's a level of baseline skepticism with everything that comes to this region. And I think there's credit to it for when you look at we hear about the steel mills, we hear about the automotive industry, again, that's coming back, but we hear about Chilcan, we hear about time after time that companies have come and gone. And we don't celebrate the wins enough in this region. I think that we like to think that we do. And I think as a perfect example, the people who know about the wins really celebrate them. We see if you go to the chamber events or any of the local, really economic development or regional impact events, you see the same faces. You know that group of people knows what's happening. But I think there needs to be something done that gets the message across to others. So, I know firsthand, and I bet we can all speak to this, that upon graduating, I know students, friends of mine, that it wasn't even a consideration. They were only looking at jobs in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. They weren't even applying for jobs in this region. And I think in the same sense that we've seen a huge generational shift in the idea of going to college and trade schools, it's something that's perpetuated from grandparents, parents, down to now the next generation. And that idea builds, I need to go to college, it's the only way I could go, X, Y, Z. In the same sense, there's no opportunities in Youngstown, Warren, I need to get out of Youngstown, I need to move. If I'm gonna be successful, I can't be here. And that perpetuates itself from the classroom, from the house, even from, just peer groups. So I think getting the word out about the wins is big. I mean, YSU's got a great nursing program, for example, and yet at the same time, I know a ton of the nursing students who are going to Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, Pittsburgh, and then you have downtown Youngstown, St. E's giving bonuses because they can't find nurses. There's a disconnect for sure.
I gotta say something.
Please.
I know one thing that keeps me here. It's like you said, it's definitely family. But one of the main things is that this area is a blank canvas, you know, and any artist, you give me a blank canvas. Now I'm sitting here thinking I can do anything. Let me see what I can do. Let's add a little black. Let's add a little red. And that's essentially what this area is. Youngstown is a blank canvas to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to do. Essentially, you can start a business and still live because things are affordable in that sense. There's not a lot of places that you can say, I'm just going to start a business and I'm not going to work, but you can still survive. That's one of the biggest things for me. We can, at this point, there's so many empty spaces and a lot of voids. And I feel like it's our job to be able to say, there's a vacancy here, there's a vacancy here, just to be able to fill that void, just like you said, to be able to get things out. So I know that's one thing that keeps me here. I want to be able to see, I grew up and I seen Mayor Jay Williams and Wendy Webb for the superintendents for Youngstown City Schools. And I've always been like the person, been like, oh, I want to be able to say those words that they're saying, you know, to fill that gap and to stand in their shoes. And now that I'm older, I can actually have the opportunity to do so and be on that platform. So, you know, just tell everybody it's a blank canvas. You can do whatever you want, literally. So
something I really speak to with our youth that I work with, just being that I know what it was like to be in their shoes, is why leave an area that you want to see changed? You know, you can't make change happen from afar. So stay here and build up the community that helped raise you, because you do have some sort of roots here. You do have some sort of want for this area. And if we want to make changes, we have to do it together from the younger side. So if you grew up in those Section 8 housing areas or underdeveloped zones, you know the challenges that are present, lack of transportation, food deserts. So why not try to make a difference to go make that happen for those that are coming up behind you?
What's the response you get?
I hear a lot of passion behind it. Some of them, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the youth I work with think they won't live to 25. So what I have to say to them is that there is a lot of life left, and if you want to make some differences, I can be the guide to help you start those differences. So hopefully we can see that move forward with their changes, and it's just lack of resources right now. But they want to get educated on how to fill in those blanks.
To kind of build on what Gina and Kaneesha were talking about, I'm not sure if I'm the only one here that has their own business, but like Kaneesha was saying, it really is quite doable to start your own business in Youngstown. And I had no business background at all. Never took a business class. I was a occupational therapist, was trained to be a good worker bee to bill insurance companies, and that was kind of it. That's kind of what we are kind of trained to do in healthcare, is to help people, but do it in a way that is profitable for businesses and insurance companies. And so in all right, the idea of starting a business wasn't something that I ever had in my mind, but when I really got out of the traditional healthcare system and out of the hospital system, my eyes were opened up to how many resources there were in Youngstown, how much community support there is in Youngstown from other local businesses, how many local businesses there are in Youngstown. And it really just, gave me that green light to be like, I can do this. I have no business background, but I have a passion. There is a patient population that needs help outside of the traditional kind of medical model. And there's been countless resources at my fingertips since starting my practice. And it's only been 2 years, but I think that that is a really big piece of a way we can promote people to come back to Youngstown. Like Kaneesha said, it is a blank canvas. I mean, healthcare here is, it's not the best, especially like women's healthcare in this region. Maternal statistics are really poor in this region. And that is a blank canvas to then, like Gina was saying, give back to my community. Instead of going to Cleveland, where they're a step ahead of us in all of this stuff, I want to do it here, give back to my community, because it is a blank state. So if it's something that somebody has a passion in, it's like, why not start a business here? Likely, you're going to be one of the few, if not the only one, with that type of business here. And there's a ton of support. We have organizations like yours who are offering up education. There's the Business Incubator downtown. There is a women entrepreneurial group that I'm a part of. There's just so many resources that I don't think people realize the opportunities when you want to start your own business. It doesn't feel quite as daunting. It wasn't daunting to me with no business background. Like the people who have business background, it's like, come to Youngstown. Like it's a blank canvas. And especially if you're from this region, like Gina said, like give back. It's a dual kind of win-win.
I think Nico, in my job, I have the ability, our headquarters is here, but my job is around the entire country. And so I get to see constantly traveling what other cities have to offer. And I think Nico hit talking today what the root cause is. We can talk about family, we can talk about other things, but people want to feel like they're a part of a winning team. People want to feel like they're a part of a winning area or whatever. And Youngstown, I know I'm playing the devil's advocate, but Youngstown doesn't do that as well, but we also don't have as many opportunities as a bigger city. I don't even need to name them, but as Cleveland and Pittsburgh being the closest. And when they don't feel as if they're winning as an organization, or they don't feel like they're winning as a team, it doesn't feel like they're winning in life. And so they seek other opportunities. I was just explaining earlier that in the leadership world, people don't often leave organizations. They leave leaders. And if we're not going to be the leaders in this city that can promote that change, then we'll never have change. I told my boss not too long ago, we were complaining about some things in the company that we would like to see change in. And I said, I honestly wish that I could take some of the employees from our office that don't get to travel as much with me on a little field trip to some of these more advanced cities to give them a spark of what it could be. Like, this is a reality that it could be. This is a reality of what it feels like to be a part of something that's bigger than you. It feels like to be a part of a winning team. And quite honestly, see how big our organization really is across the country when we're just sitting at the headquarter office and you talk about it, but you don't feel it. And when people aren't feeling the wins, or they don't feel as if I often hear Youngstown's a poverty city. And the more we talk about it like that, the more people believe it. And like Nico was saying, like from college all the way on, they're already planning on moving. That's the conversation.
But it's also the reality.
Yep.
It is a poor town.
Yep.
There are food deserts and healthcare deserts and housing issues. It's also the reality, which is why we need leadership that's like all of you here.
And going off of that, I agree with what you and Nico were saying. I think the thing that we need to do is be champions for change here. Change the narrative, change how do we attract people here? How do we make our friends who moved out of town think like, oh, well, Youngstown isn't so bad. Look at what they're doing. Look at the great public works that we're putting in. Look at these huge companies that are moving into the Youngstown-Warren area. I think that one of the really great things about living in Youngstown is there's such a strong connection. For the people who live here, I can say personally, I'm very proud to be from Youngstown. You go somewhere, you're wearing a YSU hat, you're at an airport, someone's like, oh, is that Youngstown, Ohio? Like, there's definitely a Youngstown connection. And I think that that's like one of those strong things that we need to pull upon, that like, hey, we're from Youngstown, it's a steel city. We need to, let people know that we have moved into the 21st century and beyond. It's not just some, company or this town that companies are moving out of. We have investments here. There's great people here, and getting the story out about that.
Who else would like to say something?
I was just going to say that I pretty much agree with what everyone has said about Youngstown. I always think of the quote, like, every obstacle, there's an opportunity, and I think that fits Youngstown very well. I think Paige, or not Paige, was it Paige? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned about like all the wonderful small, like the Youngstown Incubator, first 3D printing that was in Youngstown, and Humtown, like all these different places that we have that are part of the valley that I don't think people are always so aware of. And I feel that we need to find out a way to make this conversation about Youngstown, these things that are here that people can take advantage of and be a part of. As Nico is saying, we don't celebrate our wins as often as we should. And I think that's where the negativity comes, because everybody's so quick to harp on the bad things, but there are wonderful things in Youngstown that we can provide. And I think that starting a business in Youngstown is one of the best places. It's inexpensive to start one. And for the most part, I think people are very active on celebrating and supporting the local businesses, but there needs to be more. Everybody always wants to go to the bigger cities, but for me, I stayed family, and I also stayed because I'm very passionate about Youngstown. My entire life I've been here, I've never left. And for me, why wouldn't I want to see the place that I call home grow? Where people have always left, and now we get to be those people to say, hey, we took part in, something that people have just given up on. You hear it all the time, the generation that's much older than us, like, it's just not a good place, it's gone downhill, but I think that we always see the potential in it. And I think that's what, I think all of our leadership here shows, that we're positive. And I think putting that positivity on Youngstown is going to make it much better for us. And I think people are starting to see that and pulling it.
Is there anybody that hasn't been heard from that wants to say anything? Yes.
Yeah, so I stayed for family and I stayed for opportunity. I actually have two redevelopment projects that I worked on in the city of Youngstown. It's a very tough city to survive in as a business because it's poverty stricken. However, the support from the community is the only thing that keeps me waking up and pushing every single day, working 120 hour weeks. When I leave the university, I go work on my businesses, and I work on my businesses until midnight. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I do the same thing every day. It's very tough to do, but because of the community wanting that to stay, we stayed. And I came here with those businesses, and I looked everywhere else. I worked very hard to look everywhere else before coming back to Youngstown because I wanted to see. I knew I was going to be rooted in Youngstown, but I could commute to Cleveland. But it ended up being that the Youngstown community brought about opportunities that enabled us to redevelop two formerly vacant buildings and bring them back to full force and become, not an economic hub, but a place for community to meet and get together. So it's tough. It's very, very hard, but opportunity brought me back.
I'd like to challenge y'all. I think we all agree on everything that's been said so far. And I know many of you are members of organizations. Jake, you have your organization in Mercer County. We have the MVP, Mahoning Valley Young Professionals Club. So what are you going to do to advance the narrative as a group? What kind of leadership can you coalesce to reach out to people? And can that be your task as part of your club, as part of how are you going to provide that leadership?
Sure, I guess I'll start since that's what we work on. Well, when we originally started, our goal was to help our peers and our friends get plugged into our local community. As everyone mentioned, this is a great community with, unlimited opportunity. We're really a lump of unmolded clay where we can kind of shape in any direction we see fit. And so that was really how we got our start. But as we kept going, as everyone mentioned, we hear lots of negative, we kind of have this negative thought about our region. And my goal, instead of, ignoring it or pushing it off, was, how can we solve this? As a group of 35 young adults with a little bit of money in our pocket, what can we do to change some of these issues? So through the money we've raised, we either addressed, We've advocated heavily with our local community for the housing needs of young adults, which I'm sure will come up today, as that's been a big struggle. Advocating for the business and education communities to really weave together and eliminate the silos that they've been operating in. And again, build this sense of community. You know, we have, and I'm sure the Youngstown MSA is very similar, we have a significant amount of nonprofits. These organizations that have been working very heavily to improve the quality of life here. And how can we integrate young adults into these boards and these committees and kind of get some fresh ideas, some fresh thoughts flowing? You know, we've had some local champions that have been, you know, really driving the boat here for 40, 50 years. And now it's time to prep the next generation to, you know, really take off with the foundation they built.
There's a saying, it says, I've never seen a wild thing feel sorry for itself. He lived his whole life without ever feeling sorry for himself. To me, that says, to what it means to me is that naturally, it is very important for us to understand that, yes, there's a lot of areas where this area has failed. But it's so important for us to be able to understand that it's okay, but now we have to get up to be able to move on. You know, to be honest, I've heard everyone that has been speaking. I've heard you name organizations. I have lived here my entire life, and I've never heard of them before. That's a problem. Because if I don't know, then they don't know. And so now my brain is spinning. And it's like, man, you have access to this, you have access to this, and all of us together make a body. So that's going to be able to move. Right now, if I was going to be able to say anything, I would say Youngstown has been flying with one wing because the whole body isn't incorporated. So the main thing we could be able to do in order to fix it, in my opinion, is going to be education. It's having people like you, Miss Andrea, to be able to come and sit down with young people to say, all right, these are the steps that you need to take. You know, being able to say, you said you've never been a business owner before. That's a whole dynamic in itself, but you're doing it. These are the steps that you need to take. More internships to be able to grab people, to put them underneath their wing. So Youngstown's full body can actually move and run. Right now, we're just a locomotive with no gears, and it's just not good. Like I said, I'm in awe right now because I haven't heard of some of the things. And right now, a lot of the kids just don't know. And how do you know what you don't know? You know, so that's, for me, that's probably the biggest issue. And I want to be able to be that person to stand in that gap.
Well, we also want to stimulate you all to work together and to somehow come together, not just for social events such as a mixer, but to somehow develop your own leadership push as a group. That's what I'm hoping for, and I want to know whether or not the community is welcoming your leadership.
So I will say something we're playing heavily in a part now in Trumbull County is our youth summer work program. So this is in partnership with Trumbull County Job and Family Services. For 8 weeks, we put youth on work sites. These are local businesses that have given to the community, but also give insight to the youth of what opportunities are in the community, namely nonprofits that don't really have the affordability to pull on employees regularly, but the summer season tends to be a busy time for them. They are able to go onto these work sites, and we are the employer of record. So they do get paid for this time. So for 20 to 30 hours a week, they're on a job site where they get to learn about the skills of that that job, and then eventually, hopefully turn it into a career-based opportunity where they see themselves. And we highlight this constantly with Bright Energy. A youth was placed there as a summer intern, and then they liked her so much after the 8 weeks were up, they put her on her payroll and created a full-time position for her. Because our youth are able to see those moments of inspiration and these little flecks of challenges that they have, that there is a community organization behind them. So this is a great way to continuously develop our leaders and, you know, grow our youth in this area to stay and sustain themselves as well.
Please.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think that another thing that the community as a whole can do a lot better that creates awareness of these opportunities, and I do want to mention as like a disclaimer too, that when I say Youngstown, it's just out of habit, but I'm including, the suburbs, Newcastle, Hermitage, Sharon, I consider it one large area. So if I say Youngstown, it means everything. But, I really think about, instead of a lot of organizations, to your point, there's a lot of nonprofits, there's a lot of, groups that are separately going after the same cause. I think coming together, to Kaneesha's point, and really, instead of reinventing the wheel and having, a ton of different events for the same thing, make it big, reach a larger audience, get the message across, still have your organization, show how you might be different in your own ways, but come together just to reach that larger audience. I think we have a lot that we're able to piggyback off of in this area that we necessarily don't. With all of our organizations, we could say that we're a small community, but I mean, in terms of what we have, I mean, the Business Journal, not a lot of small communities have that. What we have with YBI, with the media market, with WFMJ, WKBN, what we have concerts-wise. Small towns don't have 20,000 people coming to Ween Park for Y Live, or the amphitheater, or the Cavelli Center. There's so much that we offer, let alone not even mentioning that people say that there's nothing to do here. And I think it's the worst thing you could ever say, because it's just a mindset that's come into play. I mean, even being an hour from Pittsburgh and Cleveland, all what they have going on, 40 minutes from Akron, Canton, there's so much that this area is uniquely, positioned to provide. And we have the pieces of the puzzle, but I don't know if it's so much as marketing, if it is awareness and promoting what we have. But I think so much of it is, and I hate to say it this way, but we almost shoot ourselves in the foot to not take advantage of what we have. So I think that's one thing in terms of getting the word out, is really just coming together instead of creating something new. Build off of what's already there.
Can I coattail that for a second?
Sure.
From what Nico said and what Kaneesha mentioned earlier, with her surprise hearing these organizations and resources that were utilized. I think it gets harder and harder for communities, every community, not just Youngstown, but ours being a minor metro, when you have these platforms at kids' fingertips, where they're watching influencers who are hundreds of miles away. It kind of sucks the sense of a community even further away. So the challenge that we're facing is becoming more and more difficult as these global platforms continue to get bigger, and we need to figure out how to access those kids' minds and give them a sense of community, and figure out how we do a better job sharing the available resources. What I do personally, and I try to, I think it's more of a spread out strategy. Get out there and talk to people in your day-to-day business development. Ask some personal questions, get to know somebody, and introduce them to the resources exist in our market. I have a handful of friends that have moved into our market because they married someone who was brought into an engineering job in our local community, and some of them have struggled coming from a bigger city, saying they don't know what to do. So send them the local tourism bureau websites, community calendars. There's so much stuff you can do. The Youngstown Flea is impressive if you've never been. It's just our job as leaders, day in and day out, to continue to wear our local team's uniform and sing the fight song.
I like to go. I think when Kaneesha started talking about education and learning about all the different organizations and groups, and I think definitely being able to go into schools and talk to senior classes and junior classes, like you have the Mahoney County Career and Technical Center, these kids are going to school, going into a school that is focusing on a specific lab. If they have that opportunity to meet with different businesses and organizations, the MVYPs, where we open up Mahoney Valley Young Professionals, I mean, a wide, different people from all types of businesses and organizations. I think that would be something that interests them, and then they already get that jump start in learning, hey, these types of organizations exist. It's just the fact of being able to get into schools, because I know that they have a tight frame of a day. But I think if they saw the positivity that can come from the students learning so early, and us, I would love, as the Mahoney Valley Young Professionals, I mean, there's a lot of us here that would have no issue of mentoring a senior in high school. Having a person come into YSU and mentor you for a day would be amazing, and I think that they would enjoy that. Mentoring a police officer, coming to Platz, like, these are the different things I think that they would love to do. Being able to network, I wouldn't have met Gina if it wasn't for Mahoney Valley Young Professionals, but hearing students say, like, there's no way that I can get out of this rut, what can I do? And then there's Gina, hey, like, let me introduce you to her. And I think that the networking and the education needs to be really enforced at a young age, because letting them graduate from high school and then throwing them into college or just into working in general, that doesn't give them any guidance on anything. So I would love that.
Somebody who hasn't spoken?
To build off of that and really to echo what everybody else is saying, and Kaneesha, as you were talking, the lack of awareness. And the narrative is that there's not opportunities here, and us as professionals to say we've never heard of certain organizations, how do we expect our younger generation to be aware of them? And so really I love that you were talking about mentoring, whether it's seniors in high school or, individuals that are entering at Youngstown State University, but to build that awareness of the opportunities, because if you're not even aware of the businesses that are thriving, like Paige, to be able, she's a testament to have a business here, Penguin City Beer that's doing fabulous, the Youngstown Flea, all that they're doing, there's a lot of opportunity, but does the younger generation see all that is happening, or are they just thinking these large corporations, and because we don't have as many large corporations that we're failing?
And maybe that would get them to stay.
Yeah.
Like, once they hear about it, like, why would I leave when all these opportunities are here, right where I live, inexpensive and convenient? So,
Well, I would challenge you all and your club to create that networking environment, to actually somehow work together to create that networking that is needed. Because I definitely believe that we need mentoring and internship networks, especially as a businesswoman, I see that. But I think you're all on the same page, but now you have to almost get out there and do it, rather than just get to know each other and socialize and so forth and so on. You have to get out there and do it. So that's my speech. Now, what about the 20-something that, we hear about people come back for family, people come back for the low cost of living. But but a lot of times that means you already have a partner. You're married, you have some sort of, family. But what about the single person who in their 20s? How do they get connected to the community? And are they coming back for the low cost of living when in fact there's a housing crisis?
I think you're absolutely, I'm sorry. I think you're absolutely correct, because again, when traveling around the country, I hear that all the time, that, it's a low cost of living. Well, with a low cost of living, your job takes that into account when they go to come up with your salary. So your salary is going to be significantly less than when you're at a big town and the cost of living's not significantly much higher, but you're going to get a higher wage. I don't really have a long answer, but those types of things frustrate me as a young leader, because again, you asked the last question too, how do we change the mindset in this community? I think that question's rather large, because there's so many different things that are happening. People are in a poverty mindset. They're in survival mode. COVID just made it worse, putting people in survival mode. So to gather people together, when we get into smaller rooms like this, we can all get together and come up with a solution. But to take that and market it and make everybody join hands and come together, they already have a poverty mindset. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. They're already in survival mode. So what does that turn into? Maybe it's not on purpose, but everyone becomes selfish. They're after marketing for their own business to grab what money's left, as that's how their mind runs on, well, my business isn't doing well, neither is theirs, but I need to stay alive. And it's not like that outside of Youngstown. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative against the town, but it's not like that outside of here in the bigger community. So when you're talking about people staying or leaving, why does somebody want to come into a place where they're going to make less money, but their house will be cheaper, which it's still expensive. It's still very expensive to live here. Maybe not the groceries and stuff, but the housing market is very expensive. And so why would somebody want to move back here and add even more complexity into their life with the mindsets and the survival mode and all of that kind of stuff that this area brings? I've lived here my whole life, but I do get to experience other towns and cities, and it's not as free to do what you need to do and to grow. And job advancement wise, at least in the corporate world, if you want to work in an industry part of the job sector, yeah, there's tons of jobs here. But for those that are in the corporate world, there's not much advancement here. I hear complaints all the time from college students of companies that won't hire them because they don't have experience. Well, how are you supposed to get experience if you never get your first job? So they move. Nobody wants to give them a shot at it. And I can relate to that. I mean, I'm 30 now, and quite honestly, the generation above us still, I don't feel like listens to us most of the time. That's just my personal opinion, but sometimes I find myself guilty of thinking that way about the younger 20-year-olds, and I have to snap myself because it can very well become a normal.
Let's take that. I know that other people wanted to chime in, but we have about 15 minutes left. You said that people aren't listening. Let's expand on that. What aren't they hearing, and what do we need to hear? What does my generation need to hear as we're retiring or getting ready to retire, or even the 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds? What aren't we hearing?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Get it? 9:30. Okay.
Yeah,
one of
let's
the
hit it hard.
One of the things we have to do is we have to address the mindsets of each generation, okay? You come from the beginning, and this is a man's world, and only the man can work, right? And then the women are like, okay, let's go do it. Let's go play. And we want to go ahead and do it. But it was only out of a necessity, okay? That's the only reason why women went to work. The men were off at war, okay? Then you come into this new light, and everyone's like, oh, free, let's start learning about our rights, and let's start moving forward. So now it became a unity. Now it's like, let's say around where we're fighting for unity, let's say around the 60s and 70s, right? And then my mom and my dad, they're the generation of you better do what I told you to do because that's what I said to do generation, okay? And then my generation, we're kind of like, my mama told me to do that, but I'm kind of feeling this a little bit. Whereas now the 20-year-olds, they're in the mindset and the generation of they want to know why. You told me to do it, and they're going to challenge what you're saying.
That's valid.
Okay? So you want me to do this, why? I need to know why. So the one thing that I would say the older generation does not, they're not willing, or they're maybe not willing, they just don't know, is that your why is so very important because it helps motivate me. I'm also in the United States Army. With me being in the Army, the one thing that they tell us in order to stay focused while we're away at basic training is to remember what your why is. And because that helps you to get through that 10 weeks of rigorous training that they put you through. And my why was my son. That's my why. So at the end of the day, you being able to articulate the reason why this child may need to go to college, or let's be honest, why you may not need to go to college. You know, every child doesn't need to go. Let's actually focus on what's better and what's best for this person. And just because everyone else made it, the majority of people made it by going to college. Okay, but there's a good 10% and 20% who didn't. And what if that's not for me? So being able to respect that.
What else aren't we hearing?
I think it's both sides. I think the younger generation doesn't want to hear what the older generation is saying because they know it all. They feel like they could Google it or YouTube it. But the older generation thinks the younger generation is immature and needs to be taught. There's a tension in between there.
I one quick thing that I think I experienced a lot, in economic development was that, and a lot of people touched upon it, where we've a generation who saw the steel mills depart, right? That we didn't see that. We're here. They're already gone. We're seeing opportunity and things are moving in the right direction. But that generation is still in local government and making decisions, and they carry with them this mentality that Tyler kind of pointed to, where the pie is just getting smaller in their minds. So when there's an opportunity to grab a slice, they take more than they need, and that breaks things down and eliminates collaboration. So that would be my quick piece.
Yeah, I think another thing, kind of building off what the last question and tying it into this, I think that the best way is not, I mean, obviously a huge piece is, I would say we're all young leaders and we can evangelize what we're doing in our own ways, but not just young leaders need to make other young leaders. I think like every local city, there's no reason that the senior classes should not, or have a town hall at YSU where the students get to hear from the mayor of Youngstown or any town that's in the region, and understanding what decisions are being made. Because outside of us saying, here's what we did and this is why, really you build that when they feel like they're a part of something, then they become like everyone in this room. They want to do more. Well, this is going on in Youngstown, and I said that too in a meeting, and I think that it could go further. And I think that, to your point, it's those meetings tend to just be, if we look around the room, there's not a lot of, diversity of age or generations in the room on those decision making. And to your point, it does seem like the largest share of the pie does get taken by them. But again, it's perpetuating because we're not in the room and there's not younger people in the room. So by process of elimination, that's going to continue happening. But I think that there's no reason, I think the city all around, there should be, how many people know offhand without really doing the research, the grants that are available in the Appalachian region for first-time home buyers, or when you graduate college. YSU, the cities should all be working together to put together a pamphlet. Here's opportunities, here's jobs that are open right now. Here's the top ones that you could go into. Here's grants you could get for owning a home and how to do it. There's no understanding of that that's being taught. It's really that you're doing it yourself. And I think to an extent, if you're pushing everything that this area has, you need to be able to, provide that information. We're a generation that you could look something up and find it. But for some reason, if you look up what opportunities and grants are available to buy a home and what's available funding-wise, you got to dig through 750 different articles before you find one that just says, here's what happens.
Paige, what are your thoughts? What aren't we hearing?
Well, my perspective from the healthcare side of it is a little bit different because healthcare is definitely still run from that mindset that's been set in the older generations, really insurance-based driven, really traditional medical model, and these younger generations who are really struggling in healthcare, like you said, they can't keep nurses at St. Elizabeth's downtown. They're going to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And I think a piece of that is we are really stuck in that older mindset of what healthcare is supposed to look like. And you bill insurance this, you always use your insurance for this and that. And we don't have a lot of resources for people in healthcare, opportunities for healthcare outside of that grind medical model where you're really not taken care of very well. I had to go against the grain, and so I'm completely out of network. I'm not in network with any insurance companies. And that was a huge struggle for me because of the mindset of this area, that older mindset of no, you bill insurance. If you're going to go to therapy, it's a $15 copay, and you go for 20 minutes and you see a high school student who puts a hot pack on you, and that's what therapy is. And that's a really old mindset of it. But a lot of the people who are owning these medical corporations and clinics are from an older generation. And so I think that we really need a shakeup of younger people who have a little bit different perspective of like what healthcare could look like, what we actually really want. Not paying a whole bunch of money each month to then pay a whole bunch of money for your healthcare and it be very, very subpar. What kind of, leadership can we get from a healthcare standpoint to support people who are pushing against that traditional medical model to provide different types of healthcare? Because it definitely isn't currently, and wasn't easy for me to go completely outside of that, because we are a very, very, very insurance-based region here. But I think that could change. It's just that mindset is really, really behind the times. Cleveland's seeing a resurgence and these out-of-network cash-based clinics, doctors who are direct primary care doctors, same with Pittsburgh, and we're just really behind here, which is an opportunity, but also I think the people who own these big clinics are in that older generation, and it's hard to wrap their heads around this new model that I have.
We're out of time, so we're going to go around the room for final thoughts. Gina?
Final thoughts on the question? Or
You
just-
can final thoughts on whatever you want to say.
Sure. So just to quickly go on to that last point, as someone who works in the education system, what I see from the older generation is the lack of trying to understand the younger generation. The famous line I hear a lot is, well, when I was a kid, I used to play outside till the street lights came on. Now kids sit inside on their tablets. As a mother, in this year, good. I want my kids inside on tablets because they're safe. Because it's just, I know where they're at and they're safe. There's no safety, unfortunately, in some of our more challenging communities. So I appreciate the inside on tablet mindset. So instead of berating it though, I'm always happy for comparison or conversation. Yes, I want to know how you did something. And I say this to our older mentors in our school system. I want to know how you did it, but also don't look at it as like they're doing something wrong. It's try to get on their level, match it, and then see how you can help that youth build up the mindset. I think that makes them feel more cared for, and then their education gets a little bit more value, and then from there it can stem into them, potentially turning around and keeping their self in this area.
Thank you.
My final thoughts. I recently read an article that Generation Z is not looking for a job that can advance them more than they're looking for a job that'll mentor them into the next season of their life. And we've talked about that a lot today. And I just don't feel that, not necessarily one organization or the other, because there are a bunch that do it in today's world. But the questions that we've answered today are not a one-size-fits-all. And we can't do it alone. We can't do it with just one nonprofit, one company that decides to make a change. The mindset of this community has to shift, or will either stay the same and stay stagnant, or people will continue to leave and people won't come back.
I have to tell you, I think from the 40 years I've been doing this, the mindset has shifted. Perhaps not as far as you'd like it or it needs to be, but I have seen changes. So just want to throw that in. Betsy?
Just my final thoughts. As someone who moved back to the area as a 20-something, one of the things that really set me up for success here was inclusion and being included, being invited to things, being asked for my opinion on stuff. So I think what we need to do, like outside of this room, is for the next generation, is include them. Ask them to go to an event with you. Ask them what their opinion is at work. Take them under your wing as a mentor. I think that's what we need to task ourselves with to change the narrative on Youngstown.
I would completely agree with that and build on that, because going back to talking about mentoring those that are coming into the professional field, looking at other generations that are mentoring millennials and mentoring younger professionals. I've been blessed to work under great leaders that have taken a risk on me. And so what other organizations are there that are willing to cultivate young leaders, and then us being able to carry that on to the next generation? So I still think there's some work to be done among our generation of building some of the leaders that are in the community before we can start moving to the younger generation that's coming into college.
Personally, I'm just excited. Hearing everyone talk, innovation is just, it's in the air. So I'm personally excited. I'm taking everything everybody says as self-evaluation for myself, so that I can also continue to be the change. Final thoughts as far as that part, that's just pretty much it. I'm just ready. I'm on the line with you. So I just need somebody. Let's shoot the gun so we can just all take off running. So, I probably shouldn't say that I'm a cop. Okay. But yes, key things as I'm hearing is education, awareness, and let's just go. So.
I want to agree with the statement you made a moment ago, Andrea. The mindset's definitely changing here. You do see an insane level of collaboration, and there are a lot of incredible organizations in our market working to do a lot of great things. I think we just we have the hardest challenge ever in getting that information out to the people that don't feel connected in the community, right? They already feel like they're outside looking in. So we've got to beat our way towards them, or do maybe with a kinder way get to them. But I think this has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me and putting this on.
Really quick, I just want to say, as we were talking about older generation, just that we want your support and we need your support. You've seen things that we haven't seen, we've only heard of, and so with us trying to build the valley and surrounding areas, we want your input, but hear us out. And obviously there's going to be times where you're going to fail. And that's something I think everybody here understands, that nobody ever wants to fail, but sometimes that failing is just your way to success. And just listen to us, hear us, give advice, but don't critique us and think that we're, the bad generation who can't do anything, because we are here and it is our turn to be that force. And I think we all here have that. And I will say, I am definitely going to do what you're doing. As a yoga instructor, I always reflect. And it's so important to just kind of take in what you hear from everyone else and what you see, because there's things that I haven't thought of or never even heard of, and so now it makes me just want to take time to see what I can do. And I think we're going to talk about this at MVYP, of us all getting together and connecting into MCCTC, Canfield, Boardman, because we're all from this area, what we can do. They do job fairs. I think we should probably do a community organization fair in the school. So thank you for having us here.
I think so too. That's a note I made, that we need an event.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. I think that in my past life, before I was working in my current capacity, I worked in hundreds of the small businesses in the community, and I've talked to many of you over the years and spent a lot of time around a lot of different tables talking to people. One thing that I think we can never have too much of is communication and understanding, and coming to a shared understanding about what your employee is going through, what your mentor or boss is going through. We have an 80-20 economy right now, right? We have 80% of our current local economy is not us. It is those younger or older than us. And understanding how we survive in that small piece, we need that 80% of cheerleaders encouraging us, helping us pull ourselves up by the bootstraps if we're entrepreneurs, helping us grow as professionals if that's our lane, and corporate jobs, understanding where we're at and having those conversations with us and taking the time to encourage, instead of saying, oh, these kids these days. That gives me chills. But instead saying, these kids these days are really trying to do something cool. How can I help them achieve that? How can I get behind the fence and start pushing it? The more we all pull each other up, the more the whole thing works.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, just building off of what we've heard, and I mean, I definitely agree. The mindset has 100% changed. Even, I mean, I'm 24 years old, and looking downtown 10 years ago in Youngstown versus today, it's a totally different landscape. But I think, in playing devil's advocate, I think it's something that we're in very polarizing times right now with everything, and pushing back on the narrative that it's just the older generations not listening to us. I think there's the same extent I think it's naive to think that it's just them. I think we also don't always take into consideration what we're hearing and understanding what they've seen. And I think that's a very important key. I think both sides, younger generations like, oh, what do they know? Oh, they're crazy. The older generations is, oh, they have no experience. They're too young. How could they know? I think it's just like everything else. We need to somehow break that barrier and come together. I necessarily don't know the exact way to do so. I think if someone figured it out, we'd probably be in a much better place. But I think that we need to always understand that everyone is coming from, I think, in the most cases, in the right. No one's saying that they're doing something good if they're actually doing something bad. They think, for whatever reason, what they're doing is the right way. And I think as long as we know that, there is definitely a way to bridge that gap. We're all trying to do good. It's just they see it a different way. Well, why? And having those conversations is key. But I think it's important to kind of get both sides of that, the older and younger.
Well, I just want to say that I know a lot of people my age, including my brother, who's lived in Cleveland, Chicago, Cincinnati, that are coming back to Youngstown. So that's a good thing. And also, too, one thing that I really took away from today was like how the younger generation and the mentorship and getting people experience and how can we set them up for that. And I love that idea, and I, would love to be a part of that. I just want to challenge the thinking to also include the small businesses in that, because I would love to have some, I'm the marketer, I'm the social media manager, I make all of our print material. I also do all of the events that we do. I'm also the therapist. I'm the, hiring person. So there's so much opportunity for people to come into my clinic and learn all different things. They could do social media, they could do events, they could, the therapy part, the administrative part. However, it's very challenging for small businesses to have the bandwidth to take on mentors, to even just organize what time they're gonna be there. That'd be all me. I don't have time for that. I have so many students who reach out, who want to mentor, who want to come into my clinic, but small businesses don't have an employee who can just triage all of that. So how can we make it more, because small businesses have the opportunity for them to see so much and really be a part of that growth. But it's a real challenge. So what kind of mentorship opportunities can we do as an organization that do a lot of that groundwork and organization and setting it up for small businesses? Because I have to turn it down all of the time. I can't handle it. So just if we go forward with that, which I definitely think we should, it's a little bit harder for small businesses than it is for established corporate, organizations to take on mentors and take on that role as much as we love to. Could use all kinds of insight from younger generations on a lot of that stuff, but just something to keep in mind for us going forward.
Yeah, I turn everything back to economic development. What does it look like to achieve economic prosperity for our region? And the previous model that we saw was to build the business and the people will come. We've operated like that for a long time. Steel plants could pop up, put an ad in the paper. By next Tuesday, they'd have most of their jobs filled. That model's flipped entirely upside down. It's now attract the people and the businesses will come. You're seeing it in Austin, Texas is a great example. Yep. They're focused on community. They're bringing in 50,000 people a year, and businesses, new housing, new industry, new culture can't spawn fast enough. And I think as we continue to focus on this, building this culture, attracting the people, we're going to see great prosperity in our region. And when you talk about, how do we bring back our friends? How do we retain people that have are attending our region, oftentimes for education purposes. You know, I always revert back to, there's a lot of people that have built businesses. There's a lot of people that have built families, built their home. There's very few people that have ever built a community. And our region's has a unique opportunity for young men and women under the age of 35 to really have a say and drive that direction of how our region's going to be built. And I think you're going to see that continue to be pressed on over the next 5-10 years.
Thank you all. I want to say that I'm hoping that you all will collaborate as well with Jake and some of the things that they've got going over there in Mercer County, because they've got some cool initiatives. You folks over here have had cool initiatives too, and I'm hoping that everybody, this is enlightened and something will grow from this. So thank you all for participating. Give yourself a hand. Very good, very good. And go for it.
Thank you so much.